History remembers the thunder of his cannons at Austerlitz, yet the true conquest began in the terrifying silence of a cold library where a lonely boy traded his childhood for immortality. The year is 1779, and the biting wind howls through the gray stone corridors of the Royal Military School at Brienne-le-Château. Amongst the sons of wealthy French aristocrats, there stands a child who does not belong. He is merely 10 years old, a thin and fragile figure with olive skin that betrays his Mediterranean blood. His name is Napoleon Bonaparte, and when he speaks, his heavy Corsican accent invites the cruel mockery of his classmates who see him not as a peer, but as a savage foreigner from a conquered island. While the other cadets frolic in the deep winter snow, building elaborate fortresses and engaging in boisterous mock battles to mimic the glory of their fathers, this boy turns his back on their games and runs. He feels the stinging cold of isolation, a profound loneliness that would crush a lesser spirit. But for him, it becomes a forge. He retreats into the dimly lit library, a sanctuary where the smell of old parchment and dust replaces the jeers of the playground. Here, in the silence, he discovers that he is not alone. He finds companionship in the heavy pages of Plutarch and Polybius. He reads of Sparta and Rome, and in the lives of ancient heroes, he sees a reflection of the fire that burns within his own small chest. He learns that a man can conquer the world not by shouting the loudest in the courtyard, but by understanding the silent, immutable laws of history and strategy. The aristocrats mock his poverty and his strange mannerisms, calling him a peasant. Yet they do not realize that while they play at war, he is studying the architecture of power itself. He visualizes the phalanges of Alexander and the legions of Caesar moving across the maps in his mind. This is the birth of the emperor. It is not amidst the smoke of gunpowder, but in the quiet resolve of a child who decides that if the world will not accept him, he will force the world to respect him through the sheer undeniable force of his intellect. As the young cadet ascends to the prestigious École Militaire in Paris, he steps into the beating heart of the French aristocracy. Yet he has never felt more like an intruder. The year is 1784, and the capital is a whirlwind of silk, powdered wigs, and decadent masquerades. While his classmates, dukes and counts by birthright, squander their fortunes on gambling, fine wines, and theater actresses, Napoleon faces a crushing reality. His father, Carlo, has died, leaving the Bonaparte family in Ajaccio drowning in a sea of debt. The weight of his lineage rests entirely on his 15-year-old shoulders. He has no money for coal to heat his room, no funds to repair his fraying boots, and certainly no means to participate in the lavish social life of the Parisian elite. Poverty becomes his jailer, locking him away from the world, but in doing so, it inadvertently hands him the key to the universe. He turns his small, unheated room on the attic floor into a monastic cell. Here, the world cannot touch him. While the city sleeps under a blanket of weighing and indifference, Napoleon lights a single tallow candle and opens the gates to his paper fortress. He does not merely read, he devours. He finds a kindred spirit in the writings of Jean-Jacques Rousseau, whose theories on the social contract and the rights of man ignite a revolutionary fire in his gut. He weeps over Goethe's The Sorrows of Young Werther, seeing his own melancholic isolation reflected in the tragic hero's plight. But it is not just philosophy that consumes him. He turns his mind into a weapon of precision. He attacks mathematics with a ferocious appetite, finding comfort in the absolute truths of geometry and calculus. He realizes that the arc of a cannonball is governed by the same laws that hold the stars in the sky, and he masters these laws while his peers are mastering the steps of the minuet. He becomes obsessed with geography, spreading vast maps across his floor. He traces the coastlines of England, the mountain passes of the Alps, and the dusty plains of Italy with his finger. In the silence of his room, he is already fighting the campaigns of the future. He visualizes the movement of troops, the logistics of supply lines, and the importance of terrain. He reads the histories of Frederick the Great and studies the tactical manuals of Guibert, critiquing them, annotating them, improving them. He sleeps only a few hours a night, fueling his body with dry bread and his mind with the history of empires. To the outside observer, he is a sullen, antisocial ghost haunting the library. But in his own mind, he is Alexander Hirschwato. He is Caesar, He is Hannibal. He is building a mental encyclopedia of war so vast, so detailed, that when he finally steps onto a real battlefield, he will not be seeing it for the first time. He will simply be recognizing what he has already conquered in his imagination. The aristocracy mocks his worn coat and his heavy accent, unaware that the quiet boy in the corner is systematically dismantling the intellectual foundations of their world, preparing to replace their chaotic privilege with his ruthless meritocracy. The year is 1793, and the French Revolution is drowning in its own blood. The Republic is besieged on all sides, but nowhere is the situation more desperate than at the port of Toulon. Here, the Royalist rebels have committed the ultimate treason. They have handed the French fleet over to the British. The harbor is choked with English warships, their tall masts casting long, arrogant shadows over the humiliated soil of France. On the hills overlooking the city, the Republican army is a disorganized, chaotic mob, led by incompetent political appointees who know more about making speeches than laying siege. Into this mud-soaked nightmare rides a young, unknown captain of artillery. He is 24 years old, his uniform is threadbare, and his face is gaunt from lack of sleep. He is Napoleon Bonaparte, and he brings with him not a loud voice, but a mind sharpened by years of silent study. When he arrives, he does not see the confusion that blinds the other commanders. He looks at the landscape and sees a geometry problem waiting to be solved. While General Carteau suggests senseless frontal assaults that waste lives, Napoleon studies his maps by the flickering light of a lantern. He identifies a single point of failure, the promontory of L'Aiguillette, which dominates the inner and outer harbors. He realizes, with the cold precision of a mathematician, that if he can place his cannons on that specific hill, his heated shot can reach the wooden hulls of the British ships. If the ships leave, the city falls. It is a simple equation, visible only to the man who spent his youth reading while others played. But seeing the solution is not enough. He must manifest it. For weeks, the young captain transforms into a force of nature. He is no longer the shy bookworm of Brienne. He is a demon of energy. He scrounges for gunpowder. He repairs broken gun carriages with his own hands, and he writes endless letters to Paris demanding supplies. He sleeps on the ground beside his cannons, wrapping himself in his gray coat, breathing in the acrid smell of saltpeter and wet earth. He treats his artillery pieces not as machines, but as instruments of a deadly orchestra. He constructs a battery so dangerous, so exposed to enemy fire that he names it the Battery of the Men Without Fear, to shame the infantry into manning it. He knows the psychological power of words as well as the kinetic power of iron. The climax arrives on a storm-swept night in December. The rain lashes down, turning the battlefield into a slurry of mud and blood. Napoleon leads the assault on Fort Mulgrave personally. In the chaos of the melee, amidst the screams of dying men and the thunder of musketry, a British sergeant drives a pike into Napoleon's thigh. He collapses, bleeding, but he does not retreat. The pain is irrelevant. The calculus is absolute. His men take the fort. The next morning, as the fog lifts, the British Admiral Hood looks up and sees the terrifying silhouette of French cannons pointing down at his decks. The equation is complete. The British fleet panics and sets sail, abandoning the city. Toulon falls, not to superior numbers, but to superior intellect. As the smoke clears, the young captain stands amidst the wreckage. He has proven that the solitude of the library was the forge of victory. The boy who read about Caesar has now become a man who commands like him. The crown of France now rests upon his head, heavy with gold and destiny. Yet the emperor remains, at his core, the eternal student of Brienne. As the Grande Armée sweeps across the map of Europe, shaking the foundations of old monarchies, a peculiar carriage always follows close behind the imperial coach. It is not filled with gold bullion or fine wines, but with something Napoleon values far more: a custom-made portable library. He has commissioned his personal librarian to construct special mahogany boxes lined with velvet, each designed to hold hundreds of books printed in a specific, compact format. Even while crossing the freezing, wind-blasted passes of the Alps or marching through the blistering, blinding sands of Egypt, Napoleon refuses to sever his connection to the written word. He does not merely command soldiers, he commands the savants, a legion of 167 scholars, mathematicians, an artist whom he drags into the desert to unlock the secrets of the pharaohs. Imagine the surreal nature of his campaign in Egypt. Mamluk cavalry charges with scimitars flashing in the sun, yet in the center of the French square, amidst the chaos of musketry and the roar of cannons, the order rings out. Donkeys and scholars in the middle. He protects the mind of the army as fiercely as its heart. At night, while his marshals drink to forget the horrors of the day and the soldiers collapse from exhaustion, the emperor's tent glows with a solitary light. He sits on a folding camp stool, still wearing his boots, immersed in the epic verses of Ossian or the tragedies of Corneille. He reads with a ferocious speed, his eyes scanning the pages as if he were inspecting troops. If a book bores him or offers no strategic value, he tosses it out of his carriage window into the mud, leaving a trail of rejected ideas across the continent. But those that speak to him are devoured, annotated, and memorized. This habit reaches its zenith on the eve of his greatest masterpiece, the Battle of Austerlitz. The date is December 1st, 1805. The Russian and Austrian emperors have gathered a massive host to crush him. The air is freezing, the ground hard as iron. Campfires of 70,000 French soldiers flicker like stars in the mist. The pressure is immense, enough to shatter the nerves of any ordinary man. Yet, if one were to peek into the emperor's tent in those critical hours before dawn, they would not find him pacing in panic or praying to God. They would find him reading. He retreats into the calm, ordered logic of history to stabilize his mind against the coming chaos. He sharpens his intellect on the whetstone of the past. He knows that tomorrow he will write a page of history with blood, but tonight he reads the pages written by others with ink. He understands that the battlefield is merely a physical manifestation of a mental contest. And because he has lived 1,000 lives through his books, he possesses a depth of vision that his aristocratic enemies, who spent their youth in ballrooms, can never hope to match. The sun of Austerlitz will rise, but it was summoned by the midnight oil of the scholar. The thunder of the cannons has finally faded into the hiss of the Atlantic waves crashing against the black, volcanic rocks of St. Helena. It is the year 1815, and the man who once redrew the map of the world is now a prisoner on a desolate island 2,000 miles from nowhere. The British have stripped him of his titles, his wife, and his son. They refuse to address him as an emperor, calling him merely General Bonaparte, a petty insult designed to break his spirit. He is confined to Longwood House, a damp, rat-infested farmhouse where the wallpaper peels in the humidity and the wind never stops howling. His captors believe they have buried him alive, that by removing the sword from his hand, they have rendered him powerless. Yet, they have made a fatal miscalculation. They have returned him to his natural element. Stripped of the imperial court, the gold braid, and the sycophants, Napoleon returns to the solitude of the library that birthed him. In this final exile, he wages his last and most enduring campaign. He dictates his memoirs to Las Casas in Toulon, pacing the small floorboards of his room with the same intensity he once used to pace the battlefield. He realizes that while he lost the war of armies at Waterloo, he can still win the war of history. He constructs the legend of the martyr, the Prometheus bound to the rock. He reads voraciously, consuming the few books allowed to him by the petty governor, Hudson Lowe, criticizing them, analyzing them, and improving them in the margins. He teaches English to the children of his entourage, turning the nursery into a classroom, proving that the teacher within him never died. On the 5th of May, 1821, the end comes. A violent storm rages outside, uprooting trees as if nature itself is mourning the departure of its favorite son. He lies on his simple campaign bed, his body ravaged by stomach cancer, his skin waxen and pale. In his delirium, he mutters words of command to phantom armies. But his legacy is already secure, locked not in the territory he conquered, but in the words he left behind. The boy from Corsica who chose books over war games proved that while empires crumble and flags rot, the written word is the only true form of immortality. He dies as he lived, a man alone with his thoughts, leaving the world not with a sword, but with a story that will echo for eternity. Epilogue. Solitude is not a curse. It is the crucible where greatness is forged. Napoleon Bonaparte showed us that to conquer the world, one must first conquer the silence of one's own mind. He built an empire because he first built a library. If this journey into the mind of the emperor has awakened a fire within you, do not let it fade. Subscribe to our channel. Join us as we continue to resurrect the giants of the past, uncovering the wisdom they left in the shadows. The history books are open. Turn the page with us.